Hello. Just hang on, I might just turn you a bit. While you're sitting there, let's introduce yourselves, please, because I'm going to do a sound check while you do that. Claire, over to you.
Hello everybody, I'm Clare. I live locally in Winnersh. I'm a sober coach, having stopped drinking myself. It'll be 3 years in October. I then turned kind of everything I learned about myself into trying to help other people go through the journey to sobriety.
My name's Maria and I'm a counsellor and EMDR therapist, and can you hit, is it coming through? I don't have any time.
One, two, and two.
Is that better? Oh, there we go. So I'm a counsellor and EMDR therapist, and I quit drinking nearly 4 years ago. And what I do now is I support people post-sobriety, so helping them navigate any challenges that might have come up as a result of giving up alcohol. And that's using my own personal experience, because when I quit drinking I didn't have those initial benefits like a lot of people do. So I was like, right, I think I want to support people in navigating this territory.
Which feels like new territory, because when I was at college and at school, it was cool, it was the thing to do, we looked forward to our Fridays, we finished, school was not quite the right sentence, but it was kind of true, college, as soon as we can we get to the pub, if we can sneak down there at lunch. So the whole culture has changed, hasn't it? Why is that?
Yeah, I think it's because we've got this more global drive towards well-being at the moment. I think in the last few years there's been more of an emphasis on what's good for you. You know, it's like festivals like this is all about how you can look after yourself, look after your body from the perspective of like eating better, exercising better. And I think when you start to look after yourself, the things that continue to harm you, I think, become more obvious. I also think that people are talking about sobriety a little bit more. They're sharing their stories on panels like this, through books, through podcasts, on social media. So I think there's a lot of destigmatizing going on about drinking, and we're kind of moving away from this idea that you can either drink or you have a problem, right? So we're now more aware of grey area drinkers, which is kind of somewhere in the middle.
If don't feel obligated to tell your story, but if you're happy to share, I wonder why you both chose this journey.
So for me, interestingly what you just said, I'm 49 and I started drinking when I was 15. Anyone this era will remember I had a gym membership that I made myself, laminated, and you could get in anywhere. Some of my friends are here, we were clubbing at 15, and it was a learned behaviour from kind of such an early age. So I went through my whole adult life not actually thinking anything about stopping drinking. It was just a concept that it just hadn't occurred to me because I didn't know any different. And one of my best friends actually went through, something happened with her when she was drinking, and it prompted her to stop. And I just looked at that journey she went on and I was like, I want a piece of that. I had never seen someone stop drinking, and I was like, oh my God, what, people actually stop drinking? Is that even a thing? I didn't know anyone that had stopped drinking. I only knew friends who'd had babies and had stopped for 9 months and gone straight back to it. So, you know, I was a sociable Friday night, Saturday night, maybe a Thursday drinker. And yeah, I drink at funerals, drink at weddings, drink at parties, drink at home. But that, you know, I considered myself to be a normal, I suppose, normal, sociable drinker.
Yeah, so a bit like you, Claire, I wouldn't, you know, looking back now, I wouldn't say that I would call myself a problem drinker in any way. I would drink maybe once a month, usually at like festivals or weddings, then I'd go all out. I'm one of these people who had no off switch. But what I started to realise is all the work I was putting in, because I'm quite focused on my well-being, my mental health, and being a therapist is really important, and I was doing all of these things, And every time I drank alcohol, it's like all that hard work has just gone out the window. I was missing the gym, I was eating really badly, like my mental health went down the drain, and I was like, what's the point of me doing all of these things in between to look after myself, only to then kind of undo all of it with alcohol? So yeah, I think it took me a little while. I think because I was healing in other ways, it started to really make alcohol stick out like a bit of a sore thumb. It's like when you start to get better in other areas, those things that no longer fit start to stick out. And I was like, this is literally the last thing that I haven't changed. So I decided to quit, and actually everything improved.
Yeah, so that's
eventually.
What things have you noticed then?
So I think for me, it's been very much about understanding why I drank in the first place, because I don't think that registered for me until I stopped drinking, and it was a lot around my needs. So understanding who I actually was, what made me happy, what kind of friendships I wanted, what I wanted from life as well. And I know it sounds like a really strange thing to say that all of that came post-sobriety, but I think alcohol just keeps you like low-level numbed out and low-level compliant and low-level dissociated from who you actually are. So I think for me the biggest thing has been kind of just like this rediscovery of who I am and the kind of life that I want to live. So yeah.
Oh my God, I don't even know where to start. It's been life-changing. I can't even look at them because two of my kids are here, and the benefits of improving what I feel I am as a mum is just too much to even talk about. My marriage, my health, my confidence. I think I hadn't recognised I had low-level self-doubt all the time. You know, you go to work and feel, even if you'd had one or two drinks the night before, it's that feeling of just the percentage of have I got my A game? Have I forgotten something this morning because I'd had that wine last night? And you don't realise how that goes with you everywhere. You know, you're just not 100%, and that, I think that's the biggest thing, is I just feel on all the time. Not necessarily like life still is lifing and things happen, but it's just that feeling of I trust myself. The benefits outside of it, you know, lots of them are external. You become, as I said, a better mum, hopefully a better partner, a better daughter, all those things. But how I feel about myself, it is, I can't.
And that's going to impact all of those other things as well, right?
100%, yeah.
Just out of interest, is anyone in here sober? Anyone thinking about it? Anyone a flat no?
Hello.
Yeah. But it's interesting because when I very first started having this conversation with people, it wasn't that long ago, having these sorts of interviews, and the difference in how many people in the audience will raise their hand when they say that they are either sober or thinking about it has radically changed. Because certainly when I very first got asked to do a conversation about sobriety, I don't think anyone put their hand up. And that was, yeah, for sure, it was only 8 years ago, maybe. I think sort of lockdown changed things for quite a lot of people, didn't it? So something that, I think is something that would prevent people, in my perspective, would be how to cope. First of all, is that stigma that you talk about, and, is it because you have a problem? And that's why you're not drinking. So there's this sort of murky territory around there, isn't there? And then I feel like there's quite a lot of peer pressure that you're gonna be, not fun enough or whatever it might be. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so quite a bit of the work I do with people is anything but talking about alcohol. We don't spend sort of 6 weeks just talking about wine, talking about beer. It's about redefining yourself as your genuine who you were. What I look at now is teenagers who haven't grown up in the culture that I did, and they just go and they have fun as who they are. They don't need to be drunk. And I think for some people, slightly older people or people who've drunk for a significant amount of time, they actually, my husband said it well, he's sober as well. He said when he first stopped drinking, he's like, I actually don't think I've emotionally matured from the point at which I started drinking. You know, and it's that growing as a person, being able to process things, go out for a social event and trust that you are enough in your pure sense. That, you know, that is something that, you know, Maria will talk about that. That's the sort of next phase, is actually growing that confidence to go out in the world as your sober self. It is something new.
And not only for you, presumably, but for your friends as well, who label you as that person, positively or negatively.
You know, that's some of the fallout. Is you have to have a bit of a look at your life. You have to look at the people around you that are your drinking friends, and that is all your friendship is, or it might be in fact some people get quite a lot of grief from family members, families who, my family were one of them. I would get to my mum and dad's, and the minute I'd arrive we'd all have a glass of wine, and then it was carnage, and my dad would storm off in a mood 4 hours later. That was how we all interacted as a family. And for the first probably, my mum's never seen me sober, which is a real shame, but my dad did not give me any positive comments about it for about a year and a half, because that was our culture.
Maybe it was holding up a mirror to him, right?
But as Maria will know, you know, the only way to do this is make it about yourself and what you want out of life.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, exactly that. It's one of my favourite, well, I guess a common saying that comes up with the clients that I see is, it's like you suddenly wake up sober in a life that you built for yourself whilst drunk, you know, and it's like you start dancing this different dance, and everyone around you starts to notice, and there's like this little period of adjustment of like what are they doing? Like, can I dance this dance with them? And it takes quite a lot of courage, I think, to begin with, to kind of, like you said, just do it for yourself. Keep trusting that the new things that you need and the new things that you want to do are right, and eventually everything will shift around you. But that, I think that journey is very, very individual for a lot of people. Some people go through quite a lot of losses and a lot of grief, of friendships, of identity, just this massive question mark of like, who am I without alcohol and how do I function in this world? It's interesting you said about your husband's, Claire saying that it's almost like he's reverted back to being the age when he started drinking, and there's a lot of that with my clients. They're like, it's like I've just gone back to being 15 and I have to start all over again figuring out who I am and where I fit in, which can feel quite daunting, but it's also like a second chance, like an absolute second chance to kind of not get it right, but get it right by who you are. So figure out who you are always going to be before alcohol interrupted the process, you know? And that's with identity, with your emotions, how you navigate them, your relationships, how you navigate those relationships. So yeah.
I put my hand up as a flat no, because let me check who's in here first. It's alright, this is a share. I've grown up in an alcoholic upbringing. I would consider my mum to be a functioning alcoholic, and I have spent most of my life calling the ambulance because she's fallen down or she's done something, and 4 years ago she fell and broke her neck to such an extent that she fully displaced it. That was the final thing that stopped her from drinking, but only for 6 months. Then it crept back in again. So I have had the concept of alcohol and what it does to people and the negatives for my entire life. But somehow as a result, and whether it's because I've always had an ongoing conversation about it with myself and a contract almost, I will never and have never ever drunk on my own, ever. That's like stepping over a line for me. I never ever want to become somebody who needs to have a drink on my own. So it's only ever a social environment, and I always make sure I've got people around me that I know that I'm safe with. But I am the person that will take it to 100 miles an hour, and I have a thing around. But I love having a drink, but I know that I'm in control of it. Touch wood, and I feel like I can always. But I find it quite a fascinating thing because I have no desire to be sober, even though I have seen it and I have experienced it, and I have really destructive people in my life. And I wondered what you. Not to make it all about me, but there might be people in the audience who can sort of resonate with that a little bit as well.
First thing I'd say is you're probably not old enough yet.
Hang on a minute, we're the same age, aren't we?
No, I'm older than you, I'm sure.
Oh, by like a year. I'm 44.
I'm 49.
Right, well, by
yeah, but those 5 years make a big difference, because how I felt at 44 versus how I felt at 47 are worlds apart. I feel like I woke up one morning and just couldn't drink anymore, but it didn't stop me still going, I can drink what I always used to. But I mean, a hangover would mean I couldn't almost stand up straight, like just the gravity of trying to stand up as a full person, and the anxiety I would feel, and the wasted days, and part of my, I think, purpose and reason for doing it was because I had menopause coming, firing at me, and I suddenly thought, this is something I can't control, but actually the way I approach the menopause and the tools I've got to make myself in the best shape that I can, and mentally, physically, that was what changed. I didn't stop drinking because I thought about it for years. Lots of people are sober curious for a couple of years, and it gradually builds up to the point. I just suddenly thought, my God, I just feel like shit every weekend, and I don't want to feel like this anymore. So I'm not saying you will get to that point, but I'm saying don't rule it out. Other things come into play and change what you think is your relationship with alcohol.
I believe that, I think, and this is again using my own experience, that there's things you don't and can't know about yourself until you remove alcohol, because so long as alcohol is there, it's filling a gap, and it takes a bit of time, and it's kind of like you can't explain it until you remove alcohol. Things start coming into your conscious and awareness, how you navigate certain situations without that glass of wine. I don't think alcohol has to be a problem in your life for you to grow from not having it in your life. And it's one of those things that it only becomes apparent once you've stopped, and there's that kind of subtle growth, and you're like, I wouldn't have known this if I've been drinking in this situation. So it's a bit of a, does that make sense?
Yeah, that really does.
And that was really true for me. Like when I quit, I don't know what I thought I was going to get, but what I got was very different. And I wouldn't have had that had I continued to drink. So you learn, I think you just learn about yourself, and I kind of like you're working with raw data, completely raw data of who you are and how you function in the world without the alcohol.
One thing I wanted to add as well, I mean, if I could count the amount of times people have said to me, did you have a problem then? Oh, were you an alcoholic then? Oh, why did you stop then? Because you had to. And this happens when I'm working with people, it happens all the time in my personal life. And I always go back with the same answer. Problem drinking is when it's a problem for you. I didn't really have a problem. Don't get me wrong, if I could do my life again, I 100% would have done this earlier for my children, for a million things, my health. I can't even you know, go into the reasons why I would have done it earlier, but I can't change that now. So the fact is, it's done when it was done. But the thing that changed was I decided I had had enough and I'd had a problem with it because I was unhappy with what I was doing.
And for sure, I don't think alcohol would be legalised if it was something that got brought in today, would it? Or it would certainly, you know, it would be pretty well or better regulated, I think. What about, what advice then can you give to the people who are considering starting to go to events and things where they are making that choice of saying no thank you, or, you know, what advice can you give around that process?
I think for me that's kind of a thing to worry about a little way down the line. I think the initial work you need to do is just to come to the decision for yourself, because in my world, going to an event and telling someone you're drinking is again about them, about what they're going to feel, about how they're going to respond to you. And lots of people almost just have to kind of close their life in a bit smaller to start with, because actually you need to work on your own confidence, your own ability to go where you want to go. And I talk to people so much that I had a lady I'm working with this weekend, she had something to go to, she didn't want to go, but she said she would never have wanted to go. But I know I used to do that. I'd never say no to stuff, ever. Like that just wasn't even a thing. And then I'd go and I'd think, well, it's all right because I can have a drink. And then chances are the nerves would get the better of me. I'd be more pissed than anyone else, more extra. And actually, I think the key is, especially in the early part of the sort of self-love bit, is just saying no to stuff. The stuff you want to go to will be there, and you'll feel drawn to it.
That's such a big part of the process, surely, isn't it?
It's like people pleasing elements massive.
And also, is there an extent of I'm sure he won't mind me saying it, but Matt doesn't drink anymore. And I think he went through a process of being like, oh, I sort of feel like I have to explain myself. And then actually, he didn't at all. Nobody bats an eyelid anymore, you know? It's not as scary, actually, is it, that process?
No, and I think it is, like everything, really individual. I would say to people, like, no sudden movements. Like, if you do decide to go sober, just don't make huge, massive changes to begin with. You can take you've got time. You don't have to go to all of the events. Like you said, you can say no, and a lot of the time you say no because you're like, it's not my kind of thing anymore. So you can take your time over it. I also think there's a massive piece around communication, like with your friendship groups. And I think it's really okay to just have a conversation with your friends saying, look, this is really important to me. Maybe it's not forever, but for now I don't want to drink. Can you meet me halfway? You know, let's do a bit of negotiation. Some people don't want to socialise at all when they're sober, if it involves alcohol. Other people don't mind. I kind of did a bit of both, but I communicated to my friends saying that there's going to have to be a little bit of give and take. Yes, I'll come to this festival with you, but I'm going to go off and do my own thing in the wellbeing zone. And you're then going to have to come on a walking weekend with me where nobody drinks any alcohol. So there are ways around it, but it takes a little bit of courage, a little bit of communication, and you don't have to figure it out all in one go. You can absolutely just take your time over it.
That's nice, and that's what exactly you guys do, isn't it? To help people like this.
I think people worry that they're not going to have any fun. That life is just. I don't think it helps that the word we use is sober. It's got such a
I agree.
It's got the connotations of it are that it's this sort of somber, depressing existence, and the reality is anything but that. It's the opposite. The joy you get in the most basic stuff. A woman said to me last week, I didn't know I loved growing courgettes so much. That was like, that's she said, I'm gardening.
Pretty wild, to be fair.
Yeah, she's like, she literally, she's not here, she won't mind me saying, she has gone from every night of the week living in a beautiful farm up near Scotland from getting pissed every night, sitting out in her garden, ignoring her whole family, sitting in the garden on the phone to her friends, which some people here would say I used to do quite a lot. And now she's like, I'm just gardening and I've got some chickens, and it's the joy of the basic becomes, you know, you don't actually worry about structuring your whole life about going out, because actually you find joy in so much more lower level stuff, if that makes sense.
I think that's where the authenticity piece comes in, isn't it? It's like you start to do things that you actually care about and that align with who you are. I was just chatting to one of my clients about that, and she said, I didn't know that all along I had like this capital S self within me who knew what I needed, who knew what I wanted. I was just dulling her out throughout my life, trying to keep her quiet, trying to make her fit in, and trying to kind of like mask her quirkiness. There's a little bit of diversity with this lady as well. And now, because she's sober and she's kind of getting to know herself all over again, everything that she does is aligned with who she is. So it feels fun, like it feels entertaining. You know, growing courgettes or just going for walks, or I don't know, taking up a random extreme sport. Whatever it is that you do when you're sober, it's just you. It's the authentic you that you don't have when you're drinking and making yourself fit into structures just that aren't you-shaped.
What's one sort of key message or toolkit advice that you would both like these guys to hear? One
piece of advice, I guess, give it a go. Like, sobriety is, for me, all about second chances. Yeah, it's just second chances. Give yourself an opportunity to find out what that is, what's underneath it. Stop for long enough to kind of get curious to see what's underneath those layers. And again, no sudden movements. Right? You don't have to change everything all at once. Take it slowly, and lean in. That's more than one piece of advice, I know. Lean into the communities that are out there. There's never been a better time to quit alcohol, actually, because there's so much around. You've got alcohol-free options, you've got podcasts, you've got books, you've got alcohol-free beer events, you know, retreats abroad, you name it. You can build a whole new social life. But I'd say
sober raves. How fun are they?
Yeah.
God, if you've not done an ecstatic dance, you need to. It is so much fun.
But yeah, I'd just say give it a go, see what happens. You don't know until you know, I guess.
I think mine would be trusting yourself enough that it's going to be all right, and that this person that's going to come out the end isn't going to be this boring, weaker, lesser version of the drinking self, that you've got so much to give, and as Maria said, I had created a persona. You know, my two friends are here that I work with, they all know that I used to probably send them pictures of drinks. I now would send them pictures of my 17 houseplants that I'm managing to keep alive. Because I've realised I can actually be a consistent person. I can actually show up for those plants and water them once a week, who knew? And do skincare every day, remember to take my makeup off, a million other things. I would have said I wasn't a consistent person, but that's just because I was either too worried about going out, hungover, you know, life was a bit more chaotic, and I just had to trust myself that actually there was a better version of me hiding underneath all of that, and that actually it is okay to be who you genuinely are, warts and all, with all your experience, and sod what everyone else thinks.
That's really true, you know. It's like you start to realise that you have all of the resources that you need to navigate through life, sort of inherently within you. Just have, like you said, it's about trust the process, and lean into support and help if you need it in the meantime, you know, it's there. But
I love the fact that the younger generation they go to the gym. they don't get drunk. Like
From
what?
14,
Yeah.
go to the gym.
So people at my gym that they're like, I didn't even know what a gym was until I was about 40. Like, it's insane, isn't it? It's a completely different way
Their
of
social
life.
space as
Yeah.
well. Because there aren't, things have changed. There aren't the options of good places to go out, maybe like there were. The culture's just changed. So for lots of young people, going to the gym
Yeah.
is where they will hang out with their friends.
Yeah, it's going to make this shift so much easier,
Yeah.
isn't it? Because there's
Yeah.
not going to be the pressure that there was in the 90s, 2000s.
We've got different role models now, I think, to what we did in the 90s. The 90s was all about that kind of pop culture,
Yeah.
the ladette culture.
Yeah.
Certainly for women, it was all about, getting drunk, downing pints as quickly as you can. Whereas now, and again, this is thanks to like social media and all these podcasts around well-being, you've got the option, you've got different role models, and there's that beautiful saying that if you can see it, you can be it, and that's really true, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you don't have evidence that it's possible, but that it is, that evidence is everywhere, and I think people are generally picking up on that. Actually, there's a different way of doing things. You don't have to, do what you've done before. So.
One thing I just wanted to add to that is one of the things that was really key for me with people I work with is to still remain friends with your drinking self. Like whilst I can honestly say, would I have done it a bit earlier? Probably. I don't regret what it's got me to where I am. I think I feel the enjoyment of sobriety more because I was a drinker. I couldn't do the work I did if I hadn't drunk because I couldn't relate to the people.
Yeah.
But we still do it. I laugh at the video of my husband and I on his 40th or my 40th where he face planted our island in the kitchen and broke his nose. I still laugh about that because it's part of our past.
Yeah.
For me, I know there's a place for AA and lots of other different ways to stop drinking, but I want people to be friends with what it was, and it's almost like, that was great, it was fun while it lasted, bits I'd probably change, there's bits which weren't ideal, I might have hurt people when I didn't want to, but actually this is just a new chapter. I've closed the door and I've started phase 2.0, I don't know. I just think that for me is quite important. It's not about vilifying your drinking self. You can talk, we all know alcohol's not good for us, and lots of people do the alcohol's a poison, which effectively it is, but that doesn't change the society we live in. We all know that. We wouldn't have drunk if we'd understood that clearly enough when we were younger. However, it is what it is. That's my sort of take on it. So I sometimes I feel a bit cringed hearing about what I used to be like when I didn't ever speak to any of my friends on a night out. But it is what it is.
Yeah. I think that lived experience is so important. It's more relatable, and for myself as a therapist, it took a really long time to say out loud that I was sober, to my clients, because there's like an added level of stigma. It's like, you're a therapist, you should know alcohol's bad for you. Like, why did it take you so long? But I think now I'm able to kind of feel comfortable in my sobriety and share that with people. And they're like, oh, okay, that really normalises it, and actually admitting that it can be quite hard to give up alcohol, it's not like a straightforward process for some people. But I think that lived experience, and like you said, looking back to what it was like when we were drinking, is a key piece of that as well.
I've loved this chat.
It's been good.
I'll do a month.
Give it a go, see what happens.
Please put your hands together for Clare, Skelland, and Clare. That was really good. Thank you, ladies. They will be going over to the speaker tent.